In the wake of the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, some of his defenders are insisting that Donald Trump is somehow not repeating the same mistake the U.S. has made in the past when it comes to regime change. Here's Republican Congressman Darrell Issa.
I'm sure President Trump, having learned the lesson of Afghanistan and Iraq, has no intention to tell them how to run their country. He has simply liberated them from a strongman.
He has no intention to tell them how to run their country. That's what he said. I mean, it seems pretty clear that Darrell Issa might have missed Donald Trump's press conference earlier, because here's what he had to say.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years.
There you have it. And my next guest has already been warning about what regime change in Venezuela could actually mean. That was even before the events of the last 24 hours. Joining me now is retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. Thank you so much for being here. Your piece is so good. I read it yesterday morning. It felt quite prescient, the op-ed you posted yesterday. In that op-ed you wrote, when the United States treats regime change as a discrete military option rather than a whole of government generational commitment, it repeats mistakes we have made very recently and ignores lessons we have paid dearly in blood, treasure, and reputation to learn. Tell us more about what you mean.
Well, first, I'm going to chime on to what you said right as you turn to this, and that's about legitimacy and President Trump saying he's taking over the country. One of the lessons I learned, Jen, and I wrote down a bunch of lessons after multiple tours in Iraq. One of the lessons that you can't import legitimacy. Let's put it that way. Governments derive legitimacy from their own people through trust. So foreign flags, foreign actors, friendly expats like Ahmed Chalabi in Iraq or others in other countries, or external timetables aren't going to give the legitimacy to the people. There were about 6 or 7 other lessons I talked about in that piece that I wrote literally the day before I woke up this morning to the attacks, as all of us did. Seemed to kind of point out the things that you should be looking for right now. And in the press conferences, they all seem to be ignored. We spent a lot of time talking about the excellence and efficiency and effectiveness of the military operation, which was to be expected. You're talking about using Delta Force, Rangers, SEAL teams, and the kinds of things that go into special operations in that early morning strike. But that's the first step of any kind of regime change when you're taking out a government. There are so many steps that occur after that, like what's the plan for bringing in control of the population, of reestablishing the economy, of giving people some kind of trust to put their faith in. And it seemed during the press conference, especially when the president was asked, what's your plan for the next step? And he turned around and said, well, these people behind me are the ones that are going to run it. And you could tell by the look on both Secretary Rubio and Hegseth's face that they had not heard that before. And you're basically talking about putting them into, if you can go back to 2003, the roles of General Garner, who was thwarted in Iraq, and then later on Ambassador Bremer, who went into Iraq and really kind of turned things upside down with the denazification order and the disestablishment of the Iraqi military. So the question remains to me, what's the plan? What are you going to do? Because I haven't heard anything yet that seems to indicate they have one.
That is, and I was speaking with Director Brennan about this exact question earlier, and he knows, as you know from sitting in these rooms, this is exactly what you discuss even before military action is taken, which is the next day, and what's the plan after. You talk a lot in your piece about sort of lessons from Afghanistan and Iraq. Obviously, this is a different conflict. Every conflict is different. I mean, Darrell Issa, I just played this clip, seemed to say that he thought Donald Trump had learned lessons from those conflicts. Doesn't seem to be the case. But what are some things that you kind of have your spidey sense up for that you are worried about them not planning for in the next weeks and months? You've mentioned some of them, but tell us more.
Yeah, the first would be the cultural understanding of the population. Venezuela is a huge country. It has a coastline that's 1,700 miles long. That's the distance between Boston and Key West. So you're talking about a country that's got 30 million people, all different kinds of environments. The geography is different, from the mountains to the jungles to the oceans. And again, 30 million people. Part of that 30 million people is about, and this is an estimate, but about 300,000 are in the military, either in the active military or in what they call the Bolivia Zare militia. Then you also have the police force. Those kinds of people who are part of the government bureaucracy that provides security are usually tied to the regime, either through faith and honor or through taking bribes and corruption. We don't know what it's like in Venezuela. I'm not an expert on that country, but I know we do have some in our government. So what are those close to 300 to 400,000 people going to be doing who normally work in the security force? Are they going to continue to secure the people and have faith in the people? Or are they going to turn into an insurgency? Are they going to have corruption? Are they not going to protect? Are they going to ask for money over the counter? So all of those armed men, unpaid officials, and the population combined are going to cause another problem. There's one other thing that I'll point out too, that in any kind of regime change operation like we conduct in Iraq, we learned that there's a lot of external actors that will quickly rush into the vacuum. And there's always a vacuum, because by design, any kind of regime change causes chaos and dysfunction when you take out the head of government. So you have other actors from the area, the region, who's going to support Venezuela, who's going to come across their borders, what kind of things are going to flow from within Venezuela to the outside, what other foreign actors. And we can count Cuba, possibly Colombia, China, who has a huge interest in Venezuela, Russia, Iran. So you know that there's a lot of people who are interested in what's going on in Venezuela. So the president thinking that he can just ship a bunch of oil magnates down there and they can start fixing the machinery, he's got a lack of understanding of what that culture will look like. If I can say one more thing, my last tour in Iraq, I was in northern Iraq, commanding what they call Multinational Division North. In that area, we had the Beji oil refinery and the Kurdish oil fields. So one of our big issues was, how do we turn those into workable things that will support the Iraqi people? Well, Al-Qaeda had the same issue. They wanted to take oil from those facilities and use that for their terrorist network. I think we're going to see the same thing within Venezuela in terms of how you get oil flowing again. And truthfully, President Trump, when he was campaigning in 2015, told Anderson Cooper about me that I didn't know what I was talking about, because we tried to bring oil companies into northern Iraq and they all stayed away because of the security crisis.